Welcome back, everybody, to Tremelo Nights. It's been a pretty spiritual week, for me. I started off at the weekend taking some mushrooms, and that was a fun experience. I've stopped drinking, I've stopped doing everything else, I've stopped having fun, I've stopped seeing people. So I thought, you know what, it's time to unlock my inner chi. So, and the problem with drugs is the people that deal them. And if there's one thing that I hate more than child slavery, murder, and enslavement, it's punctuality. It's people being late. And I'll tell you what, drug dealers are the most time retarded individuals on the planet. 20 minutes to them is as an hour. Yeah, this fucking guy said that someone was going to be there on Friday. I stayed up. No one ended up turning up. The following day, I try again. It rings me, says, "Oh, okay, I'm going to be 5 minutes." And it sounds like a girl on the phone or a teenager. So, yeah, I get in the car, right? And it's a girl in the passenger seat and a boy driving. The guy had long hair, so I'm kind of looking in the back like, these kind of look all right people. And like some out of a movie, he turns around to take my money off me. And he had a massive cut, like scar, but looked fresh, right across his face up to his lip. So that kind of frightened me to death, and I ran home and got fucked up with my friend. But it was really cool, and to follow on from the spiritual experience, I went back to I had to do a couple of houses on the road that I grew up with. I had to do a couple of houses on the road that I grew up on. It's so strange when you're walking down the road that you grew up on. It's so small, but it's strange. I moved from there when I was like 15, and we moved house. But I still have all my dreams and my nightmares there. More nightmares, getting told off by people and stuff. But it was like going into enemy territory, man. It was like, well, I remember vividly. I used to have a next door neighbor, and my mum worked at the hospital, so I was like, ugh, why don't we raise some money for charity? Why don't we just go around every door and just ask them for money and say my mum's going to give it to charity? Not in some sort of snide, thievery, stealing from people kind of way, in a general good-hearted way. And yeah, we just kind of went around every house and asked for money. And people were like, "How do we know you're going to do that?" And I was, "Hey, man, just got to believe me on this one, guys. I'll give it to my mum." And then we got all this money, right? It must have been about 20 quid in like £1 and 20p's and whatever. And took it to my mum, and she just looked at me like I'd just shit on the floor and was like, "What do you think I'm going to do with this? Do you think there's like a bucket that I can just put this in at work? Do you think that we have someone come round every day that asks for money?" I was like, "Yeah, isn't that what happens?" But she could have just put it in one of those plastic things that they always have at the news agents or whatever to give to charity. But nay, I think they took it and bought drugs. They just took it from me, and they probably bought heroin with it. And I never saw that money again. And I put a lot of work in for that. And I used to be I used to be so riddled with anxiety about being in trouble. I watched, what was it called, like Watchdog or whatever, like a couple of weeks later, and they were talking about fake people lying about being charities and taking people's money, and I was like, oh my God, they know. Oh God, people are looking for me. But I've had a lot of moments like that where I completely blow something out of proportion in my head. And the saying goes, making a mountain out of a molehill, right? And I've done that quite a few times about stupid shit that's not even anything to worry about, I remember once when I was fucked up on all sorts of alcohol in town. It was quite an eye-opening experience, You know when you see homeless people and then you see them with dogs and you're like, oh, fuck you. Why the fuck have you got a dog? You think if you can't feed yourself or you ain't got a home, why do you need a pet? But then, I was speaking to this homeless person while I was absolutely rat-arsed, and she had a dog. And I never really thought about the fact that, dogs don't really give a shit. They love people, and when you're homeless, and you might not necessarily have anyone that loves you, so you can have this dog and have sex with it and, love something. And, I kind of opened my eyes a little bit, like, okay, why not? I mean, people will give it food. I'm sure it survives. I mean, the woman was fat, the dog was fat. There must be enough food going round. Just shelter, innit? Anyway, but in my drunken stupor, I maybe kissed her on the cheek, and for the next maybe 3 years of my life was convinced that I had AIDS. Like, I'd Google every day, like, oh man, how do you get AIDS? I think I've got AIDS. Can you get AIDS from and the questions and stuff about AIDS are people that have been like in contact with someone with AIDS and they've had a cut or some sort of blood has been transferred, right? I've just pecked someone on the cheek and I've got AIDS in my head. I've got pos loads, but that even threw me through a bigger loop because then I was like, okay, well, I've got AIDS and I can't just go and get an AIDS test. I've got to go give blood. They'll do all the blood checks and they'll see if I've got AIDS. So I went and booked in a little appointment at the blood transfusion clinic, and they're so happy to see you. These people are like, thank God this young man is coming in and giving us some of his beautiful red blood because they need it. All right. So I went in, and I hate needle and blood stuff. I don't hate needles and I don't hate blood, but I hate my blood being taken. I start getting all fucked up about thinking about my heartbeat and stuff, and it makes me feel sick. So they kind of made me fill out a questionnaire, going through the checklist. Have you got AIDS? No. Have you been in contact with anyone that has got AIDS? No. Do you have any STDs? No. And they give you this first test where they prick your finger to check your iron or something. So you put your finger in something. And she was like, right, we'll just do that and then we'll get you all ready. And my face just went completely white after she did it. And I was just like, yeah, right, what's next then? And she was like, are you all right? You gone a bit white? And I was like, yeah, I'm all right, I'm all right. And they're like, no, you don't have to do this if you don't want. And I was like, really? Okay, I'm not going to do it, I don't think. She was like, okay, just leave. Get out of here. You've robbed us for a packet of prawn cocktail crisps. And that I kind of made off like a bandit. Got a free packet of crisps that I had to eat before I gave blood. And yeah, that was it. So that's kind of just sort of how bad decisions can lead to further bad decisions. But I can laugh about it now. But, when I was 18 and can't really thinking that I didn't have long to live, every cough, you're like, oh my God, it's spread to my lungs. Oh. You're treating everybody nicer. Oh God, I've got to be nicer. God makes me live longer with AIDS.